Okay, hello, magic world of the fine, wonderful internet. This is Love Beer Radio, back again on an early Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I have a barbecue I'm throwing today, so I had to do it a little bit earlier than we usually do it, such as life. So if that bothers you, then
we're on a time frame today. We're
loose time
speed
frame.
running it.
Speed running. Yeah, like this is gonna be a short one. So
yeah,
anyway,
it's gonna be like 3 hours.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm Matt from Massive Beer Reviews, and we have Joe
from NEPA Beer Reviews. How's it going?
Good, man. How was your week?
Pretty good. A lot of school going through the summer. So.
And that's Joe lying because he's told me he just got sucked into Fallout 3. So
that was yesterday.
Okay.
All day. I had no homework, so
nice.
It makes it better. I mean, I technically do, but whatever.
When is school kind of? Do you get? When's your break? Do you get a break? Do you get a summer break?
Yeah. I have a break. Finals for some classes are on the 26th because we have some of our classes are accelerated. So I have from the 29th to like the week of the 29th of June is off, but like technically the weekend before as well. But
nice. So yeah, let's see. What are we gonna do today? What's the dilly yo?
So today we're gonna be talking first how we review a beer. This is, people out there who don't review beer but have thought about it. We're going to be running through how we go about reviewing a beer, then also how we rate a beer, basing it on whatever, be it style, preference, or whatever. Then we're reviewing Weyerbacher's Blithering Idiot. Once again, I have an aged bottle to Matt's
newer bottle. This mine is actually
newer bottle.
Yeah, mine is bottled in January, March of this year. So
okay.
Mine's relatively new. Yours doesn't have a date code on it?
Not that I could see.
Okay.
I don't know if any of my other bottles had a date code, and I just grabbed the one that didn't. Yeah. But then after our review, we're going to be talking about putting aside bias while reviewing a beer, and also addressing different things in beer, whether it's off flavors or technical flaws, major or minor, whatever it is,
Okay, man. That sounds like a good deal. First off, any little tidbits of news or information or anything kind of kooky madooky up that way, stuff that you hear
up here? Well, the Canadian Brewing Awards or CBA live stream, but it was. I also haven't seen any of the results, so this is just right now. This is just this was a thing that happened. I have really nothing else to input about it. Yeah.
So that's pretty much it.
That's basically it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think on our end. There's one gigantic piece of news. Did you hear about it? Specifically, super local to us.
No, what's
You didn't hear the Stegmaier news?
No, what's going on?
Stegmaier is making a double IPA.
A what?
Yeah, Stegmaier. It's going to be called Stegmaier Cellar Series, a Grand Hoppa double IPA coming to bottles, and it's like it's a let's see, it's their Cellar Series, and it is a limited batch, small batch release, brewed by Leo Oronaldi. And his Grand Hop will use 5 hops, and it features Galaxy and Mosaic, and it 12-ounce bottles, and it'll be 8.9% ABV and 110 IBU.
Wow.
How about that? That's kooky madooky news, right? That's the last thing you probably expected me to ever say.
Yes.
Anybody who's listening to this that doesn't live by us, Stegmaier is pretty much like a small town version of Pabst. You know what I mean? It's
like
they produce pilsners and lagers
Lion's Head and Stegmeyer are the same beer. They come from the same tank. Like they're
Mhm.
they're not different beers. They're just different labels.
although I wouldn't poo-poo on their winter warmer. Not that it's great, but it's not bad beer. But to see them come out with something a little bit bigger is kind of I'm kind of excited about it. It's cool to see something like that go down.
It is.
So yeah, so that's my little nugget of local goodness for you. So yeah,
I feel like I saw something about that. I don't know if Ryan put something up, and I just kind of glazed over it.
I think he posted it, and then it was I found it via my Beer Buzz just as it popped up my Twitter. So that's you might have seen it in either of those two places.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I just kind of skimmed over it.
Yeah. So let's hop to it then. Let's jump in there and see what we got going on as far as judging beer. Like you said, we are going to first thing we're going to talk about is how we review beer. That's a very broad topic. I'll let you go first because this is your outline and I want to see where you go with it, and then I'll extrapolate.
Okay. So, I mean, there's kind of there's your basic formula for reviewing a beer, and everybody kind of does one thing a little bit differently. I typically don't. When I was doing video reviews, it doesn't really matter now that I'm writing, but I never really did a whole lot with the label, unlike you. I used to, and I'm like, this is just eating minutes. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like for me, I wanted a quicker, more concise video. So, like I said, there's kind of a formula where you're looking at the appearance. Aroma is always first, then flavor, and your kind of overall impression. And that's kind of where overall, which is, I kind of feel like my writing now is just the overall section of my videos, just in written form now. But yes, like that was just kind of watching when I first got into reviewing, just watching reviewers. I'm like, all right, this kind of hit these steps, and then you're reviewing beer now. Kind of almost train yourself to pick up little things and get kind of like the terms down, whether you look up stuff in a book or like whatever. But going back to what I said earlier, my style of doing videos was I wanted a very concise video, mainly because I didn't have the stuff to edit very well. I like all my video reviews, save for the last couple before I stopped, which were all done on my iPad. I did very little in the way of editing. So they're all basically raw footage, and I wanted, by a minute, in my head, I wanted the beer poured. Then I wanted to be talking about the beer and like drinking it by maybe 2 minutes, leaving the last 2 to 3 to give an overall impression. And that was for me the biggest section of my videos, to the point of where I actually always watch your videos. That's the biggest tip. Always watch them. It's going to be weird hearing your own. If you've never heard your own voice in a recording, it's going to be really weird. But always watch them, because I forget what beer it was. And I'm sitting there. It's closed. The beer's closed, and it's like painful for me. And I'm watching myself. I'm like, I cannot imagine someone looking up this beer and finding my video. And it's like, why isn't he talking? Like, this is 2 minutes of nothing. Just nonsense. like get to the beer already. So that's like when I really was like, all right, I gotta fucking speed this shit up. Put any kind of like talk while doing do multiple things. Like I wanted to talk, like if I was talking about the beer, like, oh, this label's really neat, crack the beer open, pour, and keep rolling. Like I always wanted it to keep rolling. I didn't want it to be like painfully awkward that I'm just talking about nothing with a closed beer in my hand, you know?
Yeah,
So
see,
yeah, that.
go ahead, sorry.
No, good.
No, see, like I actually have zero qualms about randomly babbling on for, ridiculous amounts of time. I could give two shits because, like, seriously, like, go ahead.
See, I wanted to do, I wouldn't mind that more if I was talking to someone. You know, if I had like Chris or you or Will or Amanda or whoever in the review and it was a back and forth. But
Yeah.
if it's just like my solo reviews, I wanted a little bit more concise, a little bit quicker, and kind of be more informational than, and leave like the talking and like my personality to the end of the review, you know?
Yeah, it's a weird thing because, like, I mean, obviously, if anybody does the beer review thing, they typically have watched beer reviews before, and that's kind of how you get into it. Rarely does a person never ever see them and just do it. I mean, that's usually you saw it before, so you do it, and like immediately, my first thing I did when I started doing beer reviews was stop watching beer reviews. It's the first thing I did because not because I don't care. Like a lot of times, like people will sit there and like they'll comment on my videos, and I will watch videos now, mainly of beers that I've had before, just to kind of get baseline of like what other people think about beers I've had. But if I've never had a beer, I steer clear typically because I don't want any outside influence. And that's kind of also the same thing with why I don't watch them based on how I do my reviews. You know, typically when I do my reviews, sit down. I'm very, very, very anal retentive as far as pattern goes, not just with this, but just with my life. So my reviews follow a same pattern pretty much every time. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. We're doing this beer today. And then I'll say the same thing. Then I'll go over the label real quick. I'll pour the beer, talk about the beer, give it an aroma, kind of go over taste, and then kind of break down like, you know, what's good, what's bad. And then my whole thing, I go into the whole, it's how good is it? Is it worth buying? And can you get it? That's pretty much, I do the whole value versus availability. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, if the beer good, how much does it cost and can you get it? To me, that's a direct correlation. Because there's beers that are 95s that are 2 on a value scale, then there's beers that are 94s that are a 10 on a value scale. Well, I'm going to buy that 94 over the 95 because it just doesn't make sense, because it's just some beers are way too askew as far as price goes. So my pattern goes a little bit different, but I also like keep myself from watching other beer reviews just so I don't mimic things. And it's kind of, you know,
I found one thing that I found myself doing was like breakfast stout just came out, gotta get a review up. It's like, well, yeah, me and 15 other people are fucking putting a review up right now. Like, yeah. Like, well, let's just do the beer that I have instead of granted, I will buy breakfast stout. I like it, but let's not worry about reviewing it right now. Let's do something else and kind of just like I found myself getting into the pattern of like, oh, beer's released, better get a review out. Like, no, this is maddening. I can't worry about when a review is going out versus, my opinion is not going to change people's minds. You'd
be surprised sometimes.
I would be surprised, but like at the same time, like I kind of had this thing of like, I don't know, I never went into this thinking that I was gonna like, I'm just doing it for fun, that's the.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think if you're not doing it for fun, like there's a lot of people out there that do reviews that are kind of like, subscriber view count chasers. And that, so people, put the review out when you first, and I've done it, not chasing whatever, but there's been, when I got a beer and I just got it just got released and I really liked it and I threw the review up. I have pushed it to the front of the queue. Like right now, I have probably 100 edited videos waiting to be uploaded because I don't upload a mass upload. I upload like one a day. So and usually I try to do the oldest one first and just get rid of all the old ones. But then like something comes out and you will get more hits. One of my more popular reviews is my Weyerbacher Sunday Morning Stout review is probably my most viewed, actually second most viewed regular review. And just because it was the first one to go on there, I wasn't like, wow, man, let me try to get this up before anybody else does. It was just like, hey, I really like this beer, and I just had it, so I'll put it up on the internet.
Some of my most popular reviews are Susquehanna's 6th Generation Stock Ale, then Coors Batch 19, like Prohibition-style lager, and the Iron Throne, the Game of Thrones beer the first iteration of it.
And that's because the first one, that's a little bit unique, but it's a local thing. If you want to get views, if that's your ultimate goal, then just review Coors and Budweiser and you'll get billions of views because that's, that's what people look for. Even if we don't think that based on the beer that we like. And the reason why your Game of Thrones ones is popular because it has Game of Thrones in the title. So people just type in Game of Thrones and they go.
The average watch time on that is 30 seconds. So it's like, oh, Game of Thrones. Oh, it's a beer. Never mind.
Yeah.
That is what's going through people's mind.
Yeah, oddly enough, my most popular beer review is New Holland's Dragon's Milk.
Really?
And it was bizarre because I put it up a while ago, and it got a few reviews. It got up to almost 100 views.
Yeah.
And then kind of sat for like about 7 months. And then all of a sudden it went ape shit and I've got 300 more views in like 4 months. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know where, like if someone featured it. Like the most popular one is Sunday Morning Stout because it was like one of the first ones that came out, one of the first reviews to hit the internet. The other was, that one, the fucking New Holland Dragon's Milk.
I just went on to popular uploads. My most popular video is Speakeasy's Big Daddy. That was my 4th beer review, and that has currently 379 views. That is my most popular.
Which one?
Speakeasy's Big Daddy.
That's a kind of an odd one to be.
It was a really odd one, and I think I chalked it up to like this would be a re-review as well, like if I could get a fresher bottle. But actually Susquehanna's SBC's thing is like most popular.
Yeah, go ahead.
Second one is the Game of Thrones though.
Yeah, mine is kind of weird. Like I said, the New Holland just became, like, not too long ago, like probably about 2 weeks ago, became the most popular one at 484. Right behind it, 479 is the Sunday Morning Stout. My end of year best of one, that's the third, just at 400. Now it starts to make sense. Now you got your 5th one is Southern Tier Pumpkin. That's just, people look for that shit all the time. Mm-hmm. The Kane anniversary one I did is really popular only because they featured it. And then actually the bottle share one that that I recap, the Christmas one, is like super popular for some reason.
Yeah.
And
I think my third or 4th is a beer cellar video that I did a while back.
And the weirdest one, the last 6th to round it out, is our Delirium Red. Me, you, and Amanda did. That's a weird one to be popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because it's Delirium and it was like a newer beer from them or whatever.
Yeah, it could be. So yeah, getting back to the whole review thing. As far as you touched on editing, like I really don't do much editing at all either. I really cut the beginning, I cut the end. That's all there is to it. That's the only things I do. I trim the beginning and the end.
That's also what I did. More so when I used my iPad, was I would cut because I'm walking around the bar.
Yeah.
turning the camera on, and then walking around the bar again, turning
I
the
wouldn't
camera
even
off.
call that editing. One of the more annoying things. I hate the cuts. I mean, there's Chris from Beer Geek Nation. A couple of people do the whole professional
Well,
presentation, which is fine.
That one is almost, nothing against Beer Geek Nation, but that's almost 3 separate videos that he puts together. Because if you notice, like there's a very clear like pause,
Yeah,
and it's like a cue, like, all right, we're gonna do and now the aroma.
yeah, and
it cuts again, and it's like, and now the taste. Like, it's almost a bunch of small clips that have been mashed together.
And that's fine. That's fine because adhering to that whole time frame thing. I get it. You know what I mean? I could give a shit, so I don't do it. I get it, but at the same time, like, I actually go out of my way to do. The only time I edit a video in the middle is if like my camera fucks up or something happens. Like, I have one of my buddies on, and they say something I can't let be on the fucking internet. You know what I mean? And then I'll cut that out. And then that's the only time I really edited anything, because I really, and to me, like, just to give you a quick glimpse into my life in general, I hate one thing in life, and there's only one thing I don't like, and that's it. And that's people being disingenuous. People that are fake, whether it be hipsters or scenesters or fake people bother me. And when someone like starts a review and the beer's already open, you can already tell they've drank the fucking beer. Like, there's, they have the beer and the glass is half full and the bottle's fucking empty. They're like, hey, we're here to review it. Be like, you just spent like 15 fucking minutes drinking.
Like, you got your
thinking about everything.
You have your full impression.
Yeah.
Right now.
And for me, it's really important to like open it, pour it, judge it, talk about it, done, because then it's more a visceral reaction, because there's no like, and writing's different. I mean, obviously you're spending more time at the beer and you want to kind of develop a thought process as far as what you're going to lay down. But like with video,
I feel like there's more, people would expect that more. Like, all right, you are going to put more time. I don't have to watch you review this beer.
Yeah.
People, it's almost like an understanding. I've said it a couple of times, but if I didn't say it, people would figure it out that I'm sitting here, and over the course of half hour, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour if it's a really big beer, I'm getting the full scope of a beer. And
if I had the time, and again, there's merits. There actually is merits on both ends, because there is something to be said to spending time with a beer. And one thing that I don't, maybe I'm just, because I don't watch videos and I go out of my way not to watch them. Maybe somebody does this, but I don't know if they do. But if I had the extra time, or not being as lazy as I typically am, what I think I might want to start doing is do exactly what I do now, and then stop the recording, walk away, and then drink the beer till almost it's done. Then come back, do the review just the way I normally would do it, and then come back and be like, okay, I'm back. I've spent about 15 minutes with this beer. This is what I think about this beer.
Greg's beer reviews, I think he does that, because he'll start the review. You see him pour the beer, and he's like, all right, we'll be back in a couple minutes, and I'm going to finish this. And then he like drinks on it for however long and just cuts it in. He's like, all right, we're back. This is really good beer. I've been drinking on it for a little while now.
No, but I mean, like, review it the way I always have, and act like it's my regular review. Then judge it twice.
Oh,
like sit there and rate it viscerally in the moment, and then be like, okay, this is my impression. I give it this score. This is this, and then come back, be like, oh, now I've spent time with this beer. This is what I think about this beer now, as opposed to what I thought about it 15, 20 minutes ago. You know what I mean? Like, to see, almost as like a litmus test, to see if there is that big of a difference in my brain. Because I think if you know what you're doing, and I'm not saying I know what the fuck I'm doing, but I think if you know what you're doing, you can figure it out in that 5-minute frame. But it's, you know what I mean? It would be nice to have like kind of like a baseline to see if you're doing shit correctly. It's like when I do go ahead.
Typically what I would try to do, especially, I mean, I already did this. I didn't have any big beer You know, we've changed backdrops on videos so many times. It went from my room to my basement to the kitchen to our dining room area. It's been all over. But when I did my stuff in my beer cellar, I wasn't taking those beer. Those beers were not put into the fridge when I was reviewing. It was, I turned around, went, this one today, turned the camera on. You know, and nothing.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with keeping a beer cold, but it was a better. Especially from my big beers, I like them warmer anyway, which is why I have. Every time we've done a review so far, I've taken the beer that we're reviewing, mainly so I don't have to get up and walk and go get it. But it's also to let it warm up little bit, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, man, I mean, like, so based off of what we're basically trying to say, first off, we're going to cover how we review beer. Again, like you said, like, we pretty much do the same thing. I throw the whole value availability thing in there. Yeah. And we were both.
The only time that I kind of do that is when I review homebrew, but that kind of goes into rating.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that for our rating section, which I'm assuming is going to be coming up in a minute now.
Well, I mean, the rating thing, we're going to be how we rate beer.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I do the whole beer advocate, rate beer 1 to 100. I don't know why. It's just something that I was used to, and I chose to do it. And here's the weird thing about it. That system doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't actually work for me, but I feel like I'm like in too deep to change. And and this is the reason why. Almost every beer I judge falls between 70 to 90. Like, that's 70 to 90 for me is D to B plus. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it really, and if you get below a 70, I mean, if you get between a 70 and a 40, it's a disgusting beer. Below 40 is almost has to be poison. I don't know if that's proper grading, whatever, but hey, that's what that's how I do it. But here's the thing.
I've always done.
Go ahead.
Actually, no. How I started. If you watch my earlier reviews, I did 1 to 10 scale for a while. Then immediately stopped that because in watching my reviews, I would go, this beer is an 8. I'm like, I just held up I'd go, this beer is a 7. I'm like, I'm holding up the wrong number of fingers. And I actually explained, like, another thing that I've always done is when I'm going to change something, whether it be the name of my reviews or how I do something, I always explain it. So, sorry.
You better apologize. Turn that shit off.
Yeah. Apparently I got a call from someone in Montreal.
Yeah. French Canadians.
Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, I would always explain it. So that was the reason. I was holding up the wrong number of fingers doing a 1 to 10 scale, and then I started doing letter grade, which I think is a little bit easier. You know, in your own mind, you can kind of wrap around on a number scale what an A is versus an A minus.
It's not, I don't want to say it's arbitrary, but it's not as cut and dry as a specific number. I was rarely on Beer Advocate or Rate Beer. I never did any. I was never on any of those sites. So the 1 to 100 just is almost, I don't know. It's not like it's silly, but it's like it's another kind of like, all right, this is just confused. Like, I don't know. See, that, and the reason why I adopted it was it made more sense to me. That's why, like to me, like saying a beer is a B is like saying, how's that beer? And it'd be like, it's good. Be like, well,
Yeah.
what do you mean? It's like, how good? You know what I mean? Like, where it's definitely gives you a baseline for whether a beer is good or bad. But it like could be like, okay, when I to me, and like I was saying before, like I typically go, almost all beers go between 70 to 89 for me. And then once you get to 90, then it's like, okay, now we're talking something that really needs to be paid attention to. Once you get to 94 in my scale, then you're talking, this is like epic shit. Once you get above, if you had to get a 98 or 99 for me, and you don't buy this beer, then you're fucking retarded. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty much how it works for me. And now that scale itself doesn't really lend itself because it's weighted so much more towards in the 90s. Like it's how do I put it this way? It's really easy to, how do I say? It's easy to get a car to go 200 miles per hour. It's really hard to get a car to go 230 miles per hour. You know what I mean? Like it's just that to get to 200. Now it's not that it's easy, but any motor company can build a car that can go 200 miles per hour. Yeah. Not a lot of motor companies can build a car that can do 230 miles per hour. And you're like, okay, it's only 30 more miles per hour. What's the big deal? Well, no, that little extra, it makes all the difference. And for me, that's why it's like almost like a curved number scale. And that's why I like it as opposed to the numbers or the grading or like lower numbers. People are like, oh, 7.5 or 7.25 and be like,
that was another, that was like, I always dealt in whole numbers. Like when you have people that are doing like 1 to 5, it's like, all right, well, what is the difference between a 4.5 and a 4 and 4.75? Like what is, it seems like an arbitrary difference, it's like too close. Like either expand your, like do 1 to 10 or just do 100, But
even 1 to 10 to me is weird.
Well, like if you like do like 1 to 10, like a 94 would be like a 9.4.
That's what I'm saying. Why do 9.4 if you could do instead of doing hundreds? That's what I mean. Like,
yeah, well, it's all like I think.
You know what I mean?
I think we get into when we're reviewing. I think we fall into just a habit, whatever kind of feels the most comfortable.
Yeah.
For us, and for me, letter grades felt the most comfortable. I could probably change if I really wanted to do a 1 to 100 scale now that I'm writing, but I've been doing letters for so long. It's just what I want to do, and I don't have to worry about confusing myself by holding up, 5 fingers when I say I want to do like a 3,
Now we were talking about how we review beers and what we do, and again, it's definitely a subjective opinion-based shit thing, just like beer is in general. But what are your thoughts on? No, I don't want to touch on that. Actually, I was gonna make fun of people, and I just don't feel like making fun of people right now because I could go. That'll make the show 45 hours. Yeah. So, I was gonna be like the people on like you said you don't pay time on Beer Advocate, but obviously you've been there, and then. Like nothing drives me nothing drives me more nuts than the person on Beer Advocate that writes like short poems. Do you know what I mean? Like this tawny tobacco laden, or it's not even, they don't even say that. This East African tobacco taste that I got, but it was like the east side of the mountain tobacco taste as opposed to west side of the mountain tobacco taste. But then I got this really, there's this Amish country orange marmalade. Like, dude, you're not fucking getting that. Like, I don't care what you're fucking I don't care who you think you are. You're not fucking getting that.
There's one thing that I never picked up in any barrel-aged beer, and that's tobacco. That's one thing I don't pick that up. I'll get your vanilla and maybe coconut. Coconut is not necessarily something that I like, so I'm not gonna really be in tune to what that would, but like, well, that's also a thing. You are not getting this this aroma or this
But
flavor.
that's the thing, though. It's also that's where something like I could see baseline, like someone saying tobacco. That doesn't bother me. It's being
it's being
West
specific.
Indies cured tobacco that was shipped to Nicaragua that spent a bunch of times in a mud hut. Like that guy fucking annoys me.
See, but like at that point, but on the flip side of that, if it's like, oh, this reminds me of, you know, my grandfather's the whatever tobacco my grandfather used to be like, all right, that's personal to you. I don't know what that is, but if that's what if you're relating that to something that is a good memory, like that's all right, that's fine. But like, don't go on the pretentious side of specific. This
is what I liked when I first started getting into beer. This is what I used to do. And I think you can't do it now because shit's changed. But this is what I used to do when I was like, okay, when I really started to get into it and I was like, okay, what the fuck? Because this is like before, well, the internet was around, but it wasn't like it was today. I'm fucking old. But anyway, it was like, I get all these flavors I couldn't compute in my brain. You know what I mean? And then what I used to do is when I would drink a beer, I'd be like, what is that taste? The next day, I'd drive to the supermarket and I'd open all the fucking spice containers and I'd just start smelling all the spice containers just to be like, what is this? And then that's how I started figuring out what was what. Nowadays, they seal them all. So you can't, back then there was no fucking sealing. I mean, you just screw the top off and it was loose and you could smell. Now they're all sealed. But that'd be like probably my best tip for somebody, like if they were getting into beer and they wanted to like figure out like tastes and notes and aromas and stuff like that, is look up the atypical flavors that a lot of people get in beers. Just buy that shit. You know what I mean? Go buy a bag of tobacco. Go buy some. And that's the thing. You probably never smoked. You probably never chewed. That's why you don't get tobacco and shit. Because why would you get it if you don't know what it is? You know what I mean? You can't say, oh, this tastes like this if you've never tasted that or never smelt that. So that's probably why you've never got it. But you probably say it's something else, which is totally normal because there's other things that smell like tobacco. So it's like one of those things where it's like, you can't say, oh, this tastes like this. Like yesterday I threw out, a first time I've never thrown this out on a beer, talking about a beer. It wasn't in a review. I had, I finally drank one of the fucking Trogs, the Cultivator, the
yeah.
And it was so fucking good. And you know what I said it tasted like sweet tea, like sweet iced tea. And so, I've never said sweet iced tea when it comes to a fucking beer before. Do you know what I mean? But it was like, that's the thing that popped in my.
I saw that. That was, I had that in.
Yeah, a few months ago.
This December.
Yeah.
Like right after. No, it was actually. It was a couple weeks ago. But it was like right after we had we covered Hell's Box, like my box and shit, in class, in our sensory class. I'm like, this is a fucking great example of, like, this is an awesome example of this style. Like, this is really fucking good.
Yeah, it was the best one I've ever had. Best Hell's Box I ever had in my life. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit. It was pushing the envelope a bit, because it actually had like a lot of good flavor. If that makes any sense. But like I was actually blown away. It tasted, like I said, it was a mixture of sweet tea, honeysuckle, and caramel malt, and that's kind of like what came to my brain. Again, the one I might have been a bit old because it came out like several months ago. But
it did. It was like in
right after when you went to Trogs when you were in for Christmas break, wasn't it? Or was it spring break?
It was spring. I came in and did went down to Trogs and Pizza Boy. It was in March when I went down because I remember I brought the Pizza Boy growlers back up with me.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, there you go. I mean, what else you got as far as rating goes and all that stuff? You just want to
how we rate. I think we should touch on that, whether we're rating to
style versus preference or
style
taste.
versus preference. I think my opinion on this is whether we think we do it or not, we're rating to style in some form or fashion. And what I mean by this is we're not necessarily doing the this, and this are what makes up the style. What I kind of think we're either doing like, oh, this I had, a barley wine. I may not know, I may loosely know what a barley wine should be. I'm going to now rate every barley wine off of my personal favorite or the best one that I've had. If you don't know, like, what flavor should or should not be in a style, if you're not rating to, like, because I've done BJCP shit, and it's really hard. Like, I get myself into that mode. If you don't rate to that, which I don't really blame anyone for not doing, I don't know. Like, it's what I'm trying to get at is whether you think you're doing it or not, you're rating to some guide for a style.
I totally disagree.
Really?
Yep, absolutely disagree. I rate specifically on how, if I like it or not. I mean, I will sit there and I will actually say, like, okay, this beer is not anything like this, but and I'll say it right to the camera. This beer, like,
well, that's
what pops to my head. What pops to my head is that I reviewed Thomas Creek's Up the Creek, which was an extreme double IPA. It wasn't an IPA at all. It was a barley wine, but I said, this is not a double IPA. This is a barley wine, but it's delicious, and I'm rating it this. And I wasn't. If they changed the name, I wasn't going to give it a higher score. So even though, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to get a better score for me.
I know what you mean, but like, okay, all right, that kind of goes way against. That does go when you. I don't know. For me, like, I don't know. It's like if it says kind of what I'm expecting. If it says one thing and it goes a completely different way, like, all right, this is double IPA. You're skating a fine line between double IPA and American style barley wine. And a lot of these beers, obviously, if you get lower in malt bill and it's just a fucking higher alcohol regular IPA as far as malts go, then yeah. But something like the Maharaja 120, all this other kind of stuff, you're like I said, you're skating a fine line. So if you kind of have that, like, this isn't necessarily this, but it could be this, then that's fine. And I know I'm going completely against what I just said. But yeah, your point has made me reevaluate my are they coming over for the barbecue now?
Yeah. People are coming. It's okay though. But yeah, I mean, like I know what you're talking about, but it's just like, for me, it's like straight up taste.
And I understand that, but like there was one thing that I saw. It was it Chad's beer reviews or something? It was like this one dude in New York that fucking
Chad's with 19 Z's, whatever. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. He said he rates to a universal style, which makes no fucking sense to me.
That dude doesn't know what he's talking about. Anyway.
Yeah, which in my mind made an IPA, like an imperial stout, on par with a fucking pilsner. You were rating it an imperial stout on how good of a pilsner it is.
Here's the only time that I believe BJCP should be used. Or is one, if it's a competition.
Competitions really is the only time. And the only reason I bring it up a lot is because I've done it. And like,
the only other time I think I wouldn't necessarily say BJCP, but if someone's gonna rate beer in a way that is very I don't want to say absolute.
Mhm.
You better be a fucking master cicerone. That's if you're not one of those 10 people, then I don't want to hear I don't want to hear your absolutes unless it's me.
Yeah.
Because then
I mean, kind of how I kind of rate is, all right, this, unless it's got other kind of shit in it, which makes any beer with like fruits or spices or whatever sound super appealing when I say that. I kind of rate it on what I think should or should not be here. You know, if I see something that's like way off, like, yeah, this is gonna, like, it's saying one thing, but it's now something else. In the case of extreme double IPA to a barley wine, that's a little bit more, I could tolerate that a little bit more. And I'm actually glad that you brought that up, which made me completely refigure my whole take on this on the fly. That's kind of something, because like I said before, you're skating that fine line where what really constitutes an American IPA or American style barley wine to a double IPA is like one way or the other. But kind of how I started rating beers, like, yeah, I like this beer, but I also wanted to convey what I felt a fair grade was, even if I didn't necessarily like the style. You know, like, this could be the best Belgian triple in the world. I don't particularly like them, and I've noticed myself warming up to that style only recently. But if I'm reviewing one, I want to put across, yes, I am not the authority. I'm not someone to go to on an opinion on this, but here's what I think. I don't particularly like this, but here's a fair grade because this is a well-made beer.
No, and I totally get you in that aspect, and that's where I shouldn't have been as cut and dry in that. Is that I don't rate based off of I do rate based off of how, I guess, let me rephrase that. Not how much I like a beer, how well the beer is made. Not within style. That's what I should have said, because I can drink a beer that I'm not a big fan of, but I can tell if it's made well or made poorly, and then rate accordingly and be like, well, this isn't my favorite style, but it's really fucking well made, so I'm going to give it a high score because it's well made, even though it's not something I love. Of course, I'm probably going to skew a little bit higher on beers that I do like, but there is a difference between, it's not just based on if I like it or not. And it's based off of there. You can definitely tell if it's well made or not. So So let's dive into this blithering idiot and see if this thing's well made.
All right.
Because I wanted to get into the review portion of the show 20 minutes ago. So.
Yeah, that was not going to happen. We both know that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, whatever. When's the last time you had this?
A while ago. I think I've had Insanity more than I've had this.
You know what? I actually had quite a few of these. I didn't really get much head on whatsoever, and this is pretty damn clear. I don't remember it being this clear.
I actually have more head on mine, and it's clear, but it's a little hazy.
But I'm also one of those craptastic techers. Usually don't get a ton of head on those. But there was a little convenience store that opened down the street from my work. And they had these on their shelves for about 3 months, mislabeled at $8.99 for a 4-pack. So I was just ripping them out of there for like 2 months straight because I'm like, hey, buddy, $8.99, this is all day. And then they changed it to $11.99.
They wised up.
Yeah, they wised up. But yeah, I mean, first off, like it's almost like it's barley wine, but it's more like, I would say, I don't know, some darker than your atypical barley wine, I guess you would say, or not darker, clearer. It's very clear. Mine is, at least.
Mine's a little bit hazy. Granted, I'm like practically in the dark here. It doesn't look like it because I have the window open and the light on across the room there, but like.
Yeah, mine. You can see. Let's see here. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Get a light going on there, baby. Yeah, you can't really see it. Anyway, no head whatsoever. I mean, nose-wise.
I had a little bit of a head, and it's dissipated pretty quickly.
Nose-wise, mine is cherry Ludens, like cherries on cherries on cherries on cherries. It's like cherry liqueur and cherry vodka with Swedish fish mixed in with cherries. That's what mine smells like.
I'm getting a little bit of an alcohol. I'm getting a lot of that cherry. I'm actually getting a lot of the cherry that you're saying. I do remember reviewing this early on. I did like a week where I did like Weyerbacher stuff.
Yeah.
So I did Blithering Idiot and then Insanity. And I remember getting a lot. I remember getting a little bit of like a banana. I don't know if it was on the aroma or in the flavor, but this aroma is really malty. A lot of cherry, like you were saying, and like I said, I get a little bit of an alcohol. And my bottle is probably
2 to 3 years older than mine.
2 to 3 years old, probably 2012, I want to say. But at the same time, probably 2013 because it was on.
It has to label change, yeah.
Just from label change, because they started putting the new labels out in like 2012-ish.
Okay.
Like late 2012 to early, I think 2013. Someone within Weyerbacher who knows a little bit more would have more specifics on that, but just I'm judging when I bought this based on its positioning in my cellar, and it was on the second shelf. It was on the second unit, like in the 12-ounce area. So I'm guessing probably 2013.
I'm actually midst of setting up. Already agreed to it, but I just got to set up a date. I'm going down to Weyerbacher and doing like a behind the scenes interview with Chris.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he's just like, he's like, let's set up time. He's like, summer's busy, let me know. So we're gonna go down there and check it out.
Summer's a busy time for breweries.
Yeah, they're making in Weyerbacher right now. They're probably opening pumpkin fucking 19 all day long. Yeah, let's dive in this sucker, man. Cheers.
Yeah.
See, mine's definitely a lot of booze. I mean, mine is really fresh. Ooh. You're talking less than 3 months old. Mine is a lot of booze. A nice mouthfeel, not super big, but a little bit syrupy. And that cherry isn't as big in the mouth that it is in the nose, but it's still there. Almost, you know what? And this, I've always gotten this from Blithering Idiot. Almost tastes like there's a little bit of oak barrel aging going on, even though it's not.
Yeah. No, I could see that in mine. I get kind of like a weird oakiness to it. Very smooth, no heat at all. Mouthfeel is a little thin. Barley wine, but a lot of caramel.
Yeah, it's not a bad beer. I just remember it being better.
Yeah.
But it might be because this one's so fresh. I think that a lot of the ones I got were shelf turds, so that's always going to help. I think a barley wine, but with this, like I said, this is a little over 2 months old. I mean, that's pretty damn fresh for a barley wine. Yeah,
really. I mean, this is fantastic. With a couple years on it, this is.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, rating wise, I would give this an 86, and I think I remember giving this a 90 to 91 before.
Yeah. I would probably go right around like an A-. It would push it up a little bit more for me if the mouthfeel was there, if the body was there a little bit more. It's a little bit too much. Almost even now, there's a little bit too much carbonation and not enough like malt. If that makes any sense at all.
No, it makes sense. I mean, barley wines is the first thing the first thing you're not going to think of when you think of barley wine is effervescence and carbonation and stuff like that, you know? So it can be a little bit, I guess you'd say, off-putting, but yeah, it's not bad. I just expected more, but like I said, it's again, grain of salt. My bottle's so new. And I think this is definitely a beer you want to let sit. But as far as value and availability, like I said, I mean, this can be had for around $10, $11 for a 4-pack, and I mean, $10, $11 for a high ABV. I mean, we're talking about what is it? 11.1% well made, really well made. Like I said, with a little bit of time, I'm going to be right up there with you.
Yeah.
For at that price point, that's just ridiculous,
Yeah, and like I said before, I got this in what they call like their big beer variety case.
Yeah.
Which had Blithering Idiot, Double Simcoe, Old Heathen, and Merry Monks.
Yeah, that's not
so
too shabby.
Basically a 6-pack, like a 6-pack of each in this case, roughly.
Yeah, that doesn't suck.
No, not at all.
So, yeah.
And I actually I have a ton of Merry Monks left. I actually have Old Label, Cork and Cage of Merry Monks.
Ooh. Yeah. I'm gonna force you to crack one of those when you come home.
All right.
So yeah, let's move on. Let's not wrap it up, but let's hit the step on the gas and move forward and go into picking out flaws. And that's pretty much what you want to do. Addressing off flavors or flaws in beer.
How I came about this topic was when I was reviewing Cause and Effect by Nickelbrook. There was a little bit of DMS in it. For those of you that don't know, DMS stands for dimethyl sulfide. It comes in. All right. For like a minute, I'm gonna go real heavy brewer on people.
It's called full nerd, by the way.
I'm gonna go full nerd. DMS comes from a compound called SMM or S-methylmethionine. It's a compounded malt that, while in the boil, converts to DMS and is then boiled off. Full nerd's done. But it leaves a corn, like a corny kind of sweet corn flavor.
Think Rolling Rock.
A lot of beers. Rolling Rock is actually what they use in training classes to tell you what DMS tastes like, and they actually order malt that has a higher level of SMM in it to get an off flavor. It's not something you want. So there was a touch of it in there, and I hope it conveyed in my writing where I'm like, I'm addressing this, but I don't want this to seem like a bad beer for it. Like, yeah, it's a minor flaw. It's there. It's not off-putting at all, but it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And that's like my point of like, how do I put across that? I feel like that was the one time where a video would have been better than a written review. 'Cause, we've all gotten we've all gotten a text that we've taken in the wrong context because it was just writing.
Yeah, context. You lose context in writing. Yeah. Sometimes it's like,
And like, I'm talking about how, I've never been disappointed by a Nickelbrook beer. I really like all their all their beers and whatever. And then I'm like, oh, I have this beer, and yes, it's flawed. Only minor, but it's flawed. And I just spent a couple lines talking about how much I like them. I'm like, how do I now put across that this is still a good brewery, still a good beer in text? But this minor flaw is there, and I feel like I think I did a good job. If someone's written or read my review, please let me know if I've conveyed that. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Like, how would you address like a major or minor flaw in a beer?
I just address it. I just say it, man. Like, I mean, not to. I mean, I definitely talk more highlight than low light. I mean, but if there's a glaring flaw, I'm going to put it in there. But there's also, it's a weird thing for me because with me liking and being involved with aged beer, that a lot of times I deal with so many flaws that it's almost like it's understood that it's going to be there. Like to get a 15 to 20-year-old beer without zero oxidation is almost like, hitting a lottery. So, I mean, but it's come to the point now where a slight bit of oxidation isn't that bad of a thing sometimes for me. It's like almost like it gives me a little bit of a boner or a little bit of whatever, because I know that it's been that's an indicator of time. So that's probably there's flaws that like I'm really dialed in on. I'm really dialed in on bad oak tannins. Like those I can pick out like fucking with my eyes closed, obviously, because it's in your mouth, so you don't need to fucking see it. And then like oxidation that I get. DMS is always a relatively easy one. But there's certain stuff, you know what I mean? Like, it's one thing that is, I wouldn't say a flaw, a human flaw as opposed to a beer flaw, is the one thing I pick out a lot, and it's one thing that people actually kind of get a little bit, I wouldn't say upset, but they actually have said shit to me about it, is unbalanced, things being unbalanced. Not so much that the beer itself has a major flaw, but like when a beer is like has way too much hop or way too much malt for the malt carrier, it's just unbalanced. And then a lot of times it's more there's way too much hops in this American barley wine. People are like, it's supposed to be hop forward, and be like, no, I don't want it not to be an American barley wine. I want the hops to be there, but it's just not balanced correctly. You know what I mean? So those are the flaws that I typically pick out, as opposed to like a brewing flaw. It's like a mixture flaw or something like that.
I think I don't know. I feel like I'm more in tune to, or at least getting there, just from being in this program. Like this is what should not be there. How can we fix that now? But yeah, like it's an odd thing for me to like. It was odd for at least that one review was like, all right, I don't know what necessarily to do here. I feel like my body language in a video review would say this is still a good beer, but could be better if. And going back to how I kind of see an American barley wine is, my main difference between an American barley wine and a double IPA is American barley wines tend to really go more toward the pine aspect of hops, as opposed to the like tropical fruity kind of mango citrus that your double IPAs will go. Does that sound?
No, I mean, no, that's right. You rarely get tropical fruit in American IPA.
That's what I'm saying. But like, does that kind of sound about right to you? And that's kind of like.
But it's more like, for me, it's more like a balance thing, and it's like calling out flaws, whether it be a brewing flaw or a human flaw. I've called out balance a bunch of times. I've called out balance as well. My biggest balance review has got to be the brewery, Black Tuesday and all of its fucking variants. Yeah, that's such an unbalanced beer. It's like hype alone keeps that beer afloat. And the probably the biggest one, just popping in my head right now, just because I just reviewed it, is Central Waters Space Ghost. It's a imperial stout brewed with ghost peppers, and it was just, I like chili, and a friend of mine off Instagram, Ben, sent me a beer mail, and he sent it in a beer mail, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait to review this. And it was because I love chilies in my beer, but it was, dude, holy shit, there's so much heat in it. But here's the thing, I'm asking him to send me another bottle because I want to wait on it 2 years, because I think it's gonna be perfect in 2 years, and I think to me it makes sense. Like I didn't give it a bad score. I gave it a not a great score, But I also, and this is kind of like makes sense talking about this now, is that I didn't give it a great score, but I absolutely went, hey, I'm giving this, I only gave it an 80, I think. But I said, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to give this at minimum, a low 90s in 1 or 2 years, because that chili's going to die off, but it's not going to die off as much as a beer that the chili was perfect right off the bat. And the beer's going to grow enough to where it's going to be a perfect balance. I think it's going to end up being a phenomenal beer. And I just think it's a beer that needed to be aged.
I feel like we almost have a different outlook on beer because we age them. Like we can kind of, given a style, we can kind of figure out where it's going to go, and we can figure out a beer that's, if we get a 4-pack, even though the label says like ABV is typically high enough for where it's good to age it, what all this other stuff on the label. Once we open up the beer, it's like, all right, never mind. No, this is not a strong enough beer. This is gonna decline with age. Or in the case of that Ghost Chili beer, you can kind of figure out through through what you've already aged before, like, maybe the chili's going to drop off and the rest of the beer is going to be able to balance itself out. And I feel like we kind of have that advantage that someone who necessarily doesn't age beer a whole lot doesn't really have,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So yeah, I'm kind of running out of time here, brother. Let's wrap this up. What
All right.
What else you got? You got any other points you want to hit on before we sign off?
I want to revise my initial rating statement and combine both of them. Okay?
Yep.
We actually kind of rate both ways. We rate on preference and style, but in a mashup. Okay? And follow me on this one. Yes, you're going to like, an Imperial Stout better than a Pilsner or a wheat beer. But you're going to rate that Imperial Stout based on your preference in that style. Like, this doesn't really hold a candle to what your particular favorite Imperial Stout has been. And that's kind of how I rate. I don't want to now use the broad we. This is how I rate. I rate a barley wine based on my favorite example of a barley wine. So I understand what that beer tasted like. Does this hold up to that? And I think that's how I rate beer, and maybe other people will agree with me on that one. But that's my revision to my my initial statement.
I would like to revise my statement too. Whatever I say is law, and what everybody else says is wrong. So that's my revision to my rating system.
Of course it is.
Okay. Let's do the old goodbyes, man.
All right. Well,
go ahead.
Well, you can find us, and I'm now going to use the universal us, being myself and Amanda, at nepabeerreviews.squarespace.com. You'd find me at NEPA Beer Reviews on Instagram. Us again at NEPA Beer Reviews on Facebook. Just me, NEPA Beer Reviews on Twitter. I did this in a weird order. NEPA Beer on Untapped. And Amanda's Twitter at NEPA Beer Blogger. We got to get her on for an episode so we can
Yeah. Well, soon enough. Maybe next week. We'll see.
Yeah.
See? Talk to her. See if she's
work.
Yeah, maybe she won't sound like a robot like you do right now.
Maybe. Listen, you had some robot sounds earlier on.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it's probably still you. Anyway, so yeah, me, Matt, Massive Beer Reviews. You can find us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped, Massive Beers, and all 4 of those places. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Shows pretty much in the books. Next week, not really sure what topic wise we're going to cover. That's Joe's job, pretty much at this point.
Yep.
But
which is a job. It's a job that I enjoy. I have a list of topics that'll run by you this week.
Hopefully, one involves the appropriate use of parentheses, and and yeah, I mean, if you guys enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you'd like to be on the show, whether you see it here on iTunes, Snitcher, or on Google Hangout, if you'd like to be a panel member, let us know. Write us at lovebeerradio@gmail.com. And let us know if you want to be on, and that would be pretty awesome. And yeah, hopefully we see you guys next week. And cheers.